Here on the South Side, Dr. Ben Carson, 2016 potential president.
Thank you. Candy and I are absolutely delighted to be here. And it looks like perhaps the rain's going to hold off, so this is wonderful. You know, it reminds me so much of some of the areas that I grew up in. And first, I just want to thank so many people who have engaged in prayer for my mother. You know, when I announced my candidacy, I had just heard that she was on her deathbed. And we went down to see her, all the kids, and you know, we started singing to her. My wife started playing the violin, and she actually opened her eyes and smiled a little bit. And everybody started praying for her, and now she's better than she's been in years. So that's great. We appreciate you. You know, my mother was someone who really thought a lot about education. She was one of 24 children, got married when she was 13, trying to escape a horrible environment in rural Tennessee. And she managed to cobble together up to a third grade education. And they escaped to Detroit. And she discovered some years later that my father was a bigamist, had another family. And that occasioned the divorce. But you know, she only had a third grade education, so she now had to take care of two young boys on her own with little or no education. And that was extraordinarily difficult. There was never money for anything. She worked very hard, getting up and leaving at 5 in the morning, getting back at midnight. And she really had a dream that somehow we would be able to get the education that she never got. And our environment was one that was very difficult. You know, there was sirens and gangs, murders. Both of my older cousins, who we adored, were killed. I saw people lying on the streets with bullet holes. Same thing that people see here in Chicago. But probably the thing that impressed me the most were the roaches. They had large, aggressive roaches. You know, in the more upscale areas, they call them water bugs, but we knew what they were. Not only would they crawl on your table, they would crawl in your cereal box. So if you were eating Raisin Bran, you had to know what those brown things were. I shouldn't say that now that I sat on the Kellogg board for 18 years. But, and then the rats. You know, the first time I saw one of those water rats, I thought it was a dog. The thing was so big, but they could jump like 5 feet in the air. And while we were there enjoying that environment, my mother was out working so hard. And her dream was somehow to be able to move back to Detroit from Boston. And after a couple of years, we were able to do that. And it was still a horrible environment, but at least she was independent. And I was a student, and I was probably the worst student you've ever seen in your life. I thought I was really stupid, and everybody else agreed with me. And although I did kind of admire the smart kids a little bit, there was one guy, he was the smartest kid in the class, and he knew it. He would always come up to you after a test and hold his paper in your face and say, "Look what I got, let me see yours, let me see yours." And you wanted to let him see it, all right, but you couldn't because you'd get in trouble. And you know, the kind of student that I was reminds me a lot of some students that I encountered today, and more alarmingly,